As dawn broke, time slowly passed in a quiet medieval village. The only sound echoing between the stone houses was the morning breeze touching the wooden shutters. There was no rush in this village. No one tried to get anywhere. Time didn't chase people as it does today. If you close your eyes now and imagine this moment, you can hear your slowing heartbeat, the sound of your deepening breath, because this is silent medieval villages. As the sun slowly rose above the horizon, the villagers would wake up. But this awakening wasn't like the alarms of the modern world. The smell of bread wafting from an oven, the sounds of animals from the barn, a single bell ringing in the distance. The day begins spontaneously. Life in these villages is simple, but not lacking. Every house, the walls are thick. They keep both the cold and the noise out. A hearth burns inside. The light of the fire casts shadows on the walls. These shadows move in the same rhythm for centuries. In medieval villages, people lived their days according to the course of the sun. Farmers who went out to the fields early in the morning felt the moisture of the earth under their feet. Touching the earth was not just a job, but also a habit that calmed the mind. Even today, modern science says that contact with nature relaxes people. But these people lived it without needing science. There was a small square in the center of the village, a well, a few stalls, and a few faces that everyone knew. No one gets lost in the crowds here. Everyone has a name, everyone has a story. That's why it's so easy to sleep at night, because one knows they belong where they are. As evening approaches, the village slows down. The fields are emptied. The sunset is like a sign for the medieval villager. It's time to rest. As the sky turns reddish, dim lights filter through the houses. They don't strain the eyes nor awaken the mind. They simply calm. When night falls, the village becomes almost completely silent. There is no engine noise, no screen light, and no constantly flowing news. Only the wind and sometimes the sound of an owl in the distance. This silence is not, on the contrary, it is reassuring. For medieval people, sleep was not something to be avoided, but rather a natural end. The day ends. The light diminishes. The body rests. If you surrender to this rhythm now, sleep will find you without forcing you. In this video, we will continue to explore the tranquil life of medieval villages, their slow-paced days, and this peaceful rhythm that we have forgotten in the modern world. Now, slow your breathing a little more and continue this silent journey with us. As the sun slowly rises over the medieval village, the walls of the stone houses silently greet the morning light. Life in these villages is unhurried. Time flows not with clocks as we know it today, but with the rhythm of nature. The villagers start their day early. The crowing of the rooster merges with the distant church bell. These sounds are not just an awakening, but calm signals announcing the beginning of the day. The doors of the houses open slowly. The creaking of wooden doors echoes along the narrow, mud-covered paths. No one has to talk, because everyone already knows what to do. The women carry water from the well. The water in the copper buckets shimmers. This water is for cooking, for cleaning, for the continuation of life. The men head to the fields. The soil is examined with bare hands. The moisture of the soil tells what the weather will be like today. This knowledge comes not from books, but from years of silent experience. In medieval towns, the day is slow but steady. No one tried to rush, because speed is not a virtue in this world. Children wander between the houses. They try to balance on the small stone walls. The games are simple, but the laughter is real. The small church in the center of the village is not just a place of worship. It is also the heart of the village. Announcements are made here, decisions are shared here, silence deepens here. As the day progresses, smoke slowly begins to rise from the chimneys. The wood fire burns, bread bakes, soups boil. These sounds weren't loud, but they were peaceful. And perhaps that's why the people who lived in these villages slept easily at night, because the day had tired their bodies. It had calmed their minds. If your mind is slowing down as you listen now, this indicates that the rhythm of medieval villages has also passed on to you. The day progressed slowly in the medieval village. Time was not in a hurry. No one counted the minutes. Life flowed in rhythm with nature. The activity that began in the early morning softened towards noon, and in the late afternoon the village was once again enveloped in silence. This silence was not an emptiness, but a balance. In the center of the village, a few people could be seen passing along the dirt road. One carried water, another stacked firewood, another bought bread from the bakery and returned home. No one spoke loudly, because in the village, sound arose out of necessity, not habit. The houses were simple but functional. These structures, built of stone and wood, were constructed to keep the cold out and the warmth in. The walls were thick. The windows were small. Light entered in a controlled, and although the work done during the day tired people, it also helped them recover. Touching the earth, repeating the same movements, would distract one from thoughts. Therefore, for the medieval peasant, sleep was not a struggle, but a natural consequence. When midday arrived, the village would briefly quiet down. When the sun was at its zenith, people would rest in the shade. Some would retreat to their homes. Some would sit under the trees. At these hours, the world would slow down. The sound of the wind would become more distinct. The birds would be heard more clearly. As evening approached, the village would come alive again, but this liveliness was silent. The last tasks of the day would be done. The animals would be taken to the stables. Fires would be lit. As the sun set, a gentle peace would settle over the village. No one tried to prolong the day. As the light diminished, life would slowly come to a standstill. That is why, in medieval villages, sleep was not a habit, but a natural continuation of life. And when night came, everything was where it should be. Life settling into the night in medieval villages, night wasn't a sudden darkness. As the day slowly receded, the village quieted down with it. There was no rush after the sunset. No one tried to get anywhere. Time flowed at its own natural rhythm. The interiors of the houses were dim. The walls were made of thick stone or compacted earth. The light source was a small oil lamp or a fire burning in a fireplace. This light didn't strain the eyes. It only illuminated the immediate area, leaving everything else to silence. The villagers completed their last tasks of the day with slow movements. A bowl of soup was stirred, a door was slowly closed, firewood was arranged. Conversations were in whispers. Loud noise was contrary to the nature of the night. Words spoken at these hours were short, because everyone knew the night was for rest. Children slept close to the adults. Separate rooms were rare. This closeness gave a sense of security. One was never alone in the silence. Outside, the village was almost entirely shrouded in darkness. There were no lamps to illuminate the paths. If the moon was out, the stone paths gleamed like silver. Otherwise, darkness gently enveloped everything. This dark, on the contrary, it was familiar. It was like a guest that recurred every night. The human body had become accustomed to this routine. Eyes would close because there was nothing else to do. The mind would slowly release the weight of the day. This is precisely what we lack today. A life that doesn't fight with the night. A world that doesn't forcibly hold on to the light. A world that awaits sleep. For the medieval peasant, sleep was not a goal. It was a natural and the village would fall asleep as easily as it breathed. As the night progresses, the medieval village slows down completely. The hum of the day gives way to a heavy silence. This silence is not emptiness. On the contrary, the true rhythm of the village emerges at this very moment. Inside the wooden houses, the oil lamps are dimmed. As the flames flicker, soft shadows move across the walls. People shed the burden of the day. No one hurried, no one waited for tomorrow. For the villagers, night is not just sleep. Night is a time for rest and recuperation. It was a routine for the body and mind to calm down so that they could work again tomorrow. That's why the night was respected. In the villages, a table, a few stools, straw beds spread on the stone floor. Even if there was wealth, it was not shown. There was no ostentation. There is no excess. This also rests the mind. The elders sit silently by the fire. Sometimes only a single sentence was spoken, sometimes nothing at all. The silence here is not disturbing. On the contrary, it is safe. The children go to sleep early. The day's fatigue leads them to a natural sleep. Their sleep is deep and uninterrupted. Their connection with the outside world slowly dissolves throughout the night. Outside the village, nature revolves within itself. The wind blows slowly across the fields. The trees seem to lean against each other. Even the animal sounds are medieval people were not afraid of the night. Darkness is not their enemy. Darkness is a natural part of rest. That's why the nights are long but peaceful. At this hour of the night, no one plans for the future. No one is forced to remember the past. The mind remains where it is. This tranquility paves the way to sleep. The whole village slows down at the same time. This shared rhythm makes you are not alone. Everyone is in the same silence as you, and time passes almost imperceptibly. Hours are not measured. Minutes are not counted. The night is accepted as it is. In this tranquility, the body grows heavy, breaths deepen, eyes close spontaneously. Sleep comes effortlessly. That's how nights pass in medieval villages. Silent, simple, and natural. Nothing rushes, nothing tries to wake you, and this peace lasts until morning. The day is now completely withdrawn. A heavy but peaceful silence descends upon the medieval village. The footsteps echoing in the fields during the day, the breath of animals, and the sounds carried by the wind give way to the soft darkness of night. The fires inside the houses gradually diminish. The flames are no longer fiery, but merely small lights reminding us of their presence. This light is not only warmth for the villagers, it is a sign that the day is over. At this hour of the night, medieval people did not rush. Sleep was not an escape, it was the natural continuation of the day. No one thought, "I must sleep." The body was already tired, the mind already calm. Inside the wooden houses, the thick fabric covers are silently pulled. The beds are not soft but familiar. Straw, wool, and linen, the simplest but safest materials nature offers. Falling asleep on these beds is not a struggle, because the day has taken all the body's strength. Hands touching the earth, legs tired from walking, lungs filled with fresh air, all of these call for sleep. Sometimes an owl's hoot is heard from outside the village. A dog barks in the distance, but briefly. These sounds are not frightening. On the contrary, they remind us that the environment is still alive. For the medieval villager, night is not a dangerous time. It is the sacred hour of rest. The doors are closed but not locked, because the village is a whole. Everyone knows each other, everyone lives at the same rhythm. At these hours, no one makes long-term plans about the future. Tomorrow will come when the sun rises. What needs to be done today, what is left undone is not worth rushing into. This simplicity of mind is the greatest key to sleep. Thoughts slow down. Eyelids grow heavy. Breath deepens imperceptibly. And at this very moment, sleep comes silently. There is no alarm, no clock pressure, no fear of catching up with tomorrow. Just darkness, warmth, and tranquility. If your eyes feel a little heavy while listening to this story, that's perfectly natural, because medieval villages teach peace, not haste. And peace is sleep's oldest friend. In medieval villages, time wasn't measured as we know it today. There were no clocks, no minutes. Time was felt by the sun's journey across the sky, the lengthening and shortening of shadows, and the rare sound of church bells. For a villager, the day flowed not hastily, but habitually. The activity that began in the early morning slowed towards noon, and by late afternoon, it almost imperceptibly blended into silence. No one chased time. Time passed slowly through the village. The interiors of the houses were simple but peaceful. Stone or wooden walls kept out the wind and the chaos of the outside world. The windows were small and the light entered softly. This dimness calmed the mind, slowing down thoughts. Towards sunset, the village took on a completely different character. The animals were drawn into the barns, the streets emptied, and conversations became shorter. The crackling of the fire, a dog's bark from afar, and the rustling of leaves carried by the wind, these were the natural music of the night. People weren't afraid of the night. Darkness wasn't a threat, it was a sign of rest. With the arrival of night, minds as well as bodies calmed down. For the medieval peasant, sleep wasn't an escape, but a natural continuation of the day. No one thought, "What if I can't sleep?" Sleep came, and when it came, it was accepted. In these villages, people didn't sleep alone. They slept in the same house, in the warmth of the same fire, sharing the same silence. This togetherness reduced the insecurity within a person. There was closeness, not crowds. Throughout the night, the village almost completely stopped. Only the glowing light of the fire and the shadows cast on the walls remained. The mind slowly released the burdens it carried throughout the day. This slowness, imperceptibly, led one to a deep tranquility. Thoughts became clear, the body relaxed, breaths calmed. Sleep didn't come by force, it filtered in through the silence. Life in medieval villages was far from the pace of today, but perhaps that's why it was more balanced. People owned less, but they stood still more. Because they stood still more, they rested better. The silence of these villages is not just a scene from the past. Even today, we can find the same peace within ourselves when we slow down, because the body still remembers that rhythm. And now, if you feel time slowing down a little, you can stay in this silence. You don't have to do anything. Just let it flow. As sunset slowly descended upon the medieval villages, life began to slow down. The hustle and bustle of the day was left behind, and the footsteps echoing between the stone houses faded away one by one. In these villages, evening was not just a period of time, but silence itself. When the wooden doors closed, the only sound left in the village was the wind, the gentle creaking of roofs, a dog barking in the distance, or the calm hum of a fire burning in the hearth. For medieval people, night was a time for rest and recuperation rather than fear. Life inside the village houses was simple. A few tools hanging on the walls, thick fabric spread on the floor, and a small hearth. The light was scarce, but the darkness was peaceful. Eyes did not tire, the mind calmed. People did not rush to sleep. The work done during the day slowly spread into the body with the weariness given by the earth. This weariness was not like the tension of the modern world. It was silent, natural, and heavy. For the medieval villager, sleep was not an escape. It was the natural continuation of the day. There was no resistance to the darkness of the night. On the contrary, darkness was accepted, and one moved with it. The elders of the village saw the silence of the night as wisdom. The young grew up in this silence. No one hurried, no one chased time. Time was already there. Some nights, moonlight fell on the stone streets. The shadows of the buildings lengthened, and the village seemed to breathe. These moments remained unchanged for centuries. Medieval villages may not have been the scene of great events, but they were places where one could be alone with one's own inner voice. That silence, which seems distant to us today, was actually very close to human nature. In these villages, sleep began with silence and continued with silence. No alarm, no rush, just darkness. Rested bodies and minds ready for tomorrow. And perhaps that is why the quietest moments of the Middle Ages form the foundation of the peace we still dream of today. If this quiet journey has been good for you, let's continue to explore these stories together. By subscribing to our channel, you can continue to meet on the quiet side of history. As the day slowly drew to a close in medieval villages, life quietly returned to its own rhythm. A gentle tranquility spread over the village as the sun retreated behind the stone houses and wooden fences. At this hour, the village was more about rest than work. People returning from the fields engaged in short conversations at their doorsteps. The weariness of the day was reflected on their faces, but there was no hurry. No one was trying to get anywhere. Time was not a pressure element as we know it today, rather, it was a natural flow. Dim candlelight was visible from inside the houses. These lights were like the only movement in the silence. The crackling of the wood fire was the only sound heard from outside. The wind, passing between the roofs, almost invited the village to sleep. Nights in medieval villages were dark but not unsettling. Darkness meant protection and rest, not fear. Because people lived according to the same hours as nature, both body and mind were accustomed to this cycle. The end of a day was met not with the rush of a new day, but with calm acceptance. Tomorrow the sun would rise again, work would be done, life would go on. That's why nights were filled not with thoughts, but with silence. Perhaps this is exactly what we have lost in the modern world today. Knowing the value of silence, living without forcing time, and truly allowing yourself to rest at night. In these villages, life was remembered not by grand events, but by small moments. The slow closing of a door, the barking of a dog in the distance, and then a deep silence. Now imagine this silence. You are inside a stone house. The wind is gently blowing outside. Everything is where it should be. The story ends here. But this tranquility can stay with you as you drift off to sleep. If you like these kinds of slow, peaceful videos where you can get lost in history, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. In new videos, we will journey together again to silent times.